Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest. Today we have from Acton, we have Nadine Mazzola with us, and she is the founder of the New England Nature Forest Therapy Consulting, and she's also an award-winning author, and she has written the book, Forest Bathing with Your Dog. Welcome. What a cover, huh? That is beautiful. She chose it herself. And do you take Juliet as her dog? Do you take Juliet with you when you go a lot?
I do. That was really the inspiration for writing the book, is that I had become trained as a certified forest therapy guide, and I was fresh back from my training, and Juliet were doing our normal morning walk down the trail one morning. And in forest bathing or forest therapy, we do a series of invitations, just interacting with the forest. And Juliet jumped off the trail into this bank of ferns, chasing after a chipmunk, and she was just like in these knee-high ferns, and her tail was waving, and it just looked like so much fun. I wanted to be in the ferns with her, and so I was kind of like, well, no, I should stay on the trail, but then I just said, well, no, just go wade into the ferns, and so I just had this most amazing time, kind of just joining her and not chasing after a chipmunk, but enjoying the ferns and greeting the ferns and touching them and just being a fern. And so dogs give us invitations, inspiration to do forest bathing all the time. So she's really one of my mentors, I consider.
When you were a kid, I was talking with Paul earlier, I used to love the forest, and my best friend and I would go in and make forts, or I would go in alone. My whole house was surrounded. Did you love the forest too as a kid?
I did. My mom was always talking to me about the forest, and she was, I think, a forest bather herself, even though the term didn't really exist then, because she would always be talking about like the sensory aspects of things, the colors, how she'd love to touch the moss and things like that. And we would identify and learn about things too, but it was really about the experience of being in the forest that I heard from her. And being a kid, I didn't pay that much attention back then, but those are the things that I remember, her words right now, and she's passed.
I loved it. It was so calm. Allergies. It was so calming. You are also a trainer and a mentor for guides in forest bathing. What's that all about?
Well, after becoming trained myself, I just had a knack for doing mentoring and was asked to start mentoring other guides that were in training and assisting on trainings, became a trainer. And so I'm still doing that today. I love it. It's one of my favorite jobs that I do.
Where do you do it?
Well, right now we do it on Zoom. With the pandemic, we had to switch to online, but it's really interesting, and we have a 4-day in-person immersion that also accompanies that. But we used to have this big intensive up front, and it was almost overwhelming for the trainees as well as the trainers, because it was so much information in such a short amount of time. And now it kind of spans over 6 months, so it's combined with what was the practicum that stood on its own. And we really find that trainees are absorbing the information in a deeper way because they have time to percolate with it and to go outside and do some things and do some of their practice walks and assignments. And so, that's one of the things that the pandemic has shown a light on, that I think may be a better way to do it. We're in inquiry about that.
And it's therapy too. Have you had a lot of people want to get on board and do this with you and take a trip through the forest, who have mental health issues?
Well, so I want to be clear. I'm a certified forest therapy guide, and I'm not a therapist. I'm not a trained or licensed therapist, although my parents were therapists, but that's another story. So I'm a guide. And So we really have this ethic, our scope of practice is that one of our sayings or our mottos is that the forest is the therapist and the guide opens the doors. And the doors are the senses. So we offer invitations that enable people to interact in a sensory way when we take them out on a guided walk. And we create a container, if you will, that's also very open so that people are really free. You know, I would tell you if you were on one of my walks that however you do the invitations will be exactly the right way.
Yeah.
So that and participants have freedom to modify and do things in the way that's best and right for them. So there's no pressure.
I know when I used to be in the forest, I would hear, it was almost like when the trees would go, like, I don't know if they go back and forth, but the leaves swinging and everything, it's almost like they're talking. I know it sounds bizarre, but it was at our beach over here, when you lay back and you look at the trees and the leaves above you, they're glistening. They glisten, and then, of course, looking out at the water, it's glistening. So I'm a natural for this type of thing. I love it.
I love these stories. I just love what you shared and how you were describing it, and that's also a part of what we do on a walk is run a forest therapy program when it's guided, because you can do this individually on your own with your dog, or you can come on a guided walk that's led by a certified guide. And in a guided experience, we come together and we share very lightly in between these invitations, and people share things just like you shared.
Right.
And so that it's really wonderful. It builds this kind of community and relationship with the forest, with each other, with ourselves, getting to know ourselves better as we hear the shares from the others that are accompanying us, from ourselves. Sometimes they're similar, sometimes they're very different, and it just can have a profound effect sometimes. It's really beautiful.
Are you bringing anybody out? There's so many forests in Massachusetts. Is there special trails that you like to take people on?
Well, it's more like some of the characteristics of trails are just that they're wider and it's easy to walk by each other and there's space. An open understory is really nice. If I had to really say, like, my absolute favorite kind of trail is probably a conifer forest with a little stream that is accessible, that you can kind of get down by the water and spend some time with. Mossy areas are my favorite, but anything will do, even a park. I just stopped on the way over here by one of the reservoirs that had some beautiful benches.
The Westboro one? Isn't that something?
It's just beautiful. And I actually made a note in my notebook that this would be a great place for an accessible walk. Where you
it goes right. They made like a trail that goes out into the woods.
Yeah.
So you were right on. In Westboro, it's weird. In Westboro, it's Upton Road. You cross over into Upton, it's Westboro.
It's the same in Acton.
We are talking with Nadine Mazzola, and she is the founder of New England Nature and Forest Therapy Consulting. She is also the award-winning author of Forest Bathing with Your Dog. This is her dog, Juliet, right on the cover. How can they get a hold of your book?
So the book is available anywhere online where you prefer to buy books. It's also available in ebook or Kindle format, and it's available in audiobook. And I'll just share that the audiobook version was read by a fellow forest therapy guide and dog owner, so she really gets it.
Our guest was on PBS, ABC, and what newspapers were you featured in?
I've been featured in the Boston Globe several times, and then some other regional newspapers.
Now, how did they find out about you? Did you contact them?
No. Well, sometimes I have. So, in a former life, I used to be a...
Okay.
This former life, but say a former career. I used to be a professional pocket billiard player.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you.
Pocket billiard?
Pocket billiard. I used to play 9-ball on the Women's Professional Billiards Tour.
Oh.
And my husband at that time was my publicist. And so we would reach out to a lot of media, and so it's a combination of, I've got that experience of reaching out to different media outlets, but also they, found my website, and one thing leads to another, and
That's
and
fantastic.
you become known.
That's
yeah.
really, oh my God. I would never in a million years. So they would pay you to win at a billiard game?
Well, there are tournaments. I ran a regional tour with my husband, and then there's a national professional women's tour.
Yeah.
And so we would, you'd enter the tournaments and then compete to win. So
That's amazing. How did you get interested in that?
in college, in the pub, there was a cute person, and just.
Where'd you go to college, Nadine?
I went to college at Johnson and Wales in Providence, Rhode
Yeah,
Island.
Rhode Island. You studied to be a cook.
I studied equine business management.
That's horses.
Another previous thread.
Horses.
Yeah.
Oh my God! What now? Can you still work with horses too?
I really got interested in the business and marketing side, and although horses are near and dear to my heart, I think I decided I didn't want to work in the industry because it was really intense and 24/7, and I just had things at home I didn't want to leave.
I know that horse therapy is out there nowadays. It's good too, and I'm picturing the horse going through the woods with you, leading the whole tour. Again, we're talking with Nadine Mazzola, and I found a part in this book that absolutely, tell me how I can do this. Forest bathing with cats. I have a huge, rum-tum-tugger cat, boy cat. How would I get him out there?
Well, does he go outside first of all, or are you both inside? So that's.
Well, he's an inside boy, but drag him out.
Yeah.
How would I do
Well,
it?
you can do inside too. I mean, so forest bathing is really noticing what's going on around you with your senses, slowing down a little, and just noticing. And our pets. Animals, I mean, that's how they are all the time.
Yeah.
So it's really just slowing ourselves down and being instead of focusing on our busy minds. And so, looking at the leaves outside or
Yeah.
inside and just kind of being with them.
I would never think of this, Nadine. She says indoors, okay, picture yourself with your cat indoors. Enjoy the sun coming in through a window. Watch the birds outside. Oh yeah, he'd love that. The birds outside. Watch the leaves or snowflakes falling and notice movement with all of your senses. And if you can get your cat outdoors to go for a walk, lie in the grass and soak up the sun. I'd love to see him do that. Let movement, sound, and smells capture your attention. Play with a bug. Oh, he'd love that too. Watch an ant crawling in the grass. You don't have a kitty, right?
I used to have 2 cats. They're both passed now.
And you have 2 doggies now.
Just one.
Just one.
Yeah, but the same way I describe in the book that I forest bathe with Juliet, because there are some tips in the book, is could be applied with cats. And one of the things that Juliet has mentored me in or shown me is the art of the pause. And so when we're walking with our pets down the sidewalk or in the forest along the trail, they pause periodically and they're investigating things. And while I might not want to investigate what she's investigating, although sometimes it's, she's led me to the ferns, to secret animal homes on the other side of trees that I wouldn't have seen. But I take that moment, and rather than trying to rush her through, I let her enjoy it, and then I let myself enjoy it, and I look around and take the invitation to look around and see what I might notice as some sunlight on a stone or some moss, or just seeing a particular part of the trail that I haven't stood there and looked at it in that way.
Right.
And I see many, many wonderful things that way.
Over in Milford, they have a trail. I know they're there. Of course, we've got the Upton State Forest right down. You went by it.
I pulled in there and checked it out.
Yes. That was actually with my husband. That was our first date. I think we went walking around, and I got eaten alive by bugs. Oh, I kid him now. I say, well, that's a heck of a way to make an impression on a girl. Go have her eaten up in the forest. We, again, are talking with Nadine Mazzola, and she is the founder of New England Nature and Forest Therapy Consulting and the award-winning author of Forest Bathing with Your Dog. I mean, don't you just love it? You chose this, too. You chose that cover.
I chose it. So I self-published the book, and I also designed it. One of my other careers was as a self-taught graphic designer. And so I designed the cover, and I had this real vision for this book and all the images in it that I wanted lots of images or illustrations, as they are, in the book, but I didn't want actual images because I wanted to leave something to the imagination. So I wanted to offer suggestions of the forest and my dog and myself, but not say like it looks like this. I want the reader to be able to create with their own imagination, with the words and the suggestion of the illustration, the moments that it resonate with them.
There is, what's it called? It's in Worcester, I believe. Oh, I can see it. It's one of the. It's a nature place. I cannot see it. Meadow something. I don't know, but anyway, that's another great place. There are places around, in New England, everywhere. New Hampshire. I mean, I went to college up there. I mean, you could get lost. The trails up in near the White Mountains. Section 2 is forest bathing with your dog. Then she gives you the key trips. Forest bathing, let's go outside. A field guide. Do you provide like a written guide to your clients at all when they come?
Well, when I'm guiding a group of people or a group of dog owners on a walk, I'm really guiding them, and I don't necessarily, I send a follow-up email that has some tips and actually a link to that guide. But during the actual program, I'm just guiding it, and I'm verbally giving people these invitations. And so that's, when you take doing another activity like an exercise class or some kind of mindfulness class, we can do all of those things on our own. But when you go to attend a class, there's something about the camaraderie and also being held by the instructor, the framework of the time. You can just relax into it and really be there. And it's the same when you're being guided by a certified forest therapy guide, that it's just a experience that you can really settle into. And typically there are walks that range in length from 1 to 3 hours, but a 3-hour or half-day forest therapy experience is really something very special. And it may sound like a long time, but it goes by like that.
It's like meditation.
Yeah. Well, it's different than meditation. So I was just sharing about this last night on my talk with the Appalachian Mountain Club. In the effects that meditation or different mindfulness practices have on us in terms of becoming present and relaxing, and the physiologically and psychologically the effects of us, yes, forest bathing or forest therapy is very similar. Forest therapy has also an element of, I would say, like a relational element of relationship, because we start relating to all the living beings out there and each other and even ourselves. So there's this really kind of strong relational element that comes out. And where mindfulness is a little different, or meditation, is that oftentimes we may be focusing, trying to kind of put our attention on one thing and let everything else go. It might be ourself, our breath. And with forest therapy, we're really, we're noticing ourselves, but we're also just noticing what's around us. And we're letting our attention land in whatever is asking for it. So it might be the bird, and then it might shift to the leaves, might end up on the stone, or it might just kind of be with one thing for a long time, but it's really just, it moves around. And then also, we really do make a point of inviting in the enjoyment or pleasure or playfulness, oftentimes playfulness and these kind of elements of ourself, of just being our authenticity, our true selves kind of start to emerge a little bit. You asked me earlier about people sharing this practice with people with different mental health issues, and although I'm not a mental health trained professional, I've worked with mental health professionals with specific groups, so that we have the support person that is trained appropriately to be with these groups and taken other groups out. And there are many, many other guides that are even trained, actually medical health professionals and mental health professionals.
I'm thinking, gosh, there's so many opportunities for you connecting places. I would think some people in addiction recovery getting to focus on something that's non-threatening and just, you can just be. My mother asked me when I was growing up, she said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I went, I just want to be. Now, I'm sure that wouldn't sit well with my father. He was goal, but I think she got it. She says, yeah, she got it. Is there a special age group, or do you have all ages that come?
All ages come. I think it really depends on the guide and the groups that they like to work with. So some guides specialize in young children, some older adults, some dog owners, so, and it's a special thing when a child, sometimes you're leading groups of children or high school age kids, but when a parent brings a child sometimes, it just lights up the whole experience because we all kind of can channel into their freedom, and they bring this wonderful specialness to it.
Also, of course that's what I do, but it's like senior centers, present there's so much. What do you do in the winter?
Well, I typically give myself some time off. There are many guides that guide during the winter, and I've had this secret ambition that I would love to guide during the winter, but I want there to be snow on the ground, and I want all of us to be dressed in ski pants and snow parkas and really bundled up so that we can be really warm.
Hiking boots, maybe?
Yes.
That would be good.
And I haven't figured out how to quite plan that out, so.
We've got just a few minutes left. Once again, Nadine, how do they reach you?
So my book can be bought anywhere online where you prefer to buy your books, and it comes in the ebook version and the paper book version, which is really awesome because it's got a lot of wonderful illustrations that I'm very proud of and really add a lot to the reading experience. And then it's also available in audiobook wherever you prefer to buy your audiobooks.
There's also going to be a copy in the dedicated local author section in the Upton Town Library if you happen to come by. Something I was going to ask you was, I love journaling. Do you provide the notebooks, or do they bring their own?
Well, in the back of my book, I provided some journal pages. It was a special edition that I put in.
I see that.
And oftentimes we don't, people are encouraged to bring a journal if they'd like, but often some just, come without. And so, and it's just in the sharing that we kind of journal with each other.
Do you ever use art with it? I think, because you know how you make a collage? I could just say take it one step further. When you get back to your ground zero, wherever you're going to be, have a bunch of nature things from magazines, and then they put together a collage, and they'll never forget it. They'll keep it.
I just trained a guide so I also do lead some expressive arts classes at a place called the Virginia Thurston Healing Garden. It's a support place for people affected by cancer.
Yes.
And so I do combine like forest therapy, and we'll usually collect found objects, or I'll bring flower petals and leaves from my own garden, and we'll create different things. But also when I'm guiding walks, some of the invitations I'll give are like create a gift for the forest using found objects. It can be as simple as a leaf next to a stone, or as elaborate as people want. And some people make these amazing designs and things. But I also just trained a guide who is an artist, and she's from Ohio, and she is absolutely going to do combined forest therapy and art experiences.
Nadine, thanks so much for being with us. We're going to get her back on again. I always say that, but this is really fascinating stuff. I mean, when you're a kid, like when you start out like that, I can remember with my best friend, it's clear as day, going into the woods near our house. I was surrounded by it. We would make forts. We would pretend we were monks, and we would pretend that the bark that sometimes gets a little wet, we would be churning butter. And we were so quiet working together. I mean, we had a big rock in the woods, and I used to go there all by lonesome and sit there and just kind of take it all in. Were you an only child?
I was.
Okay, I was almost one. I was the youngest of two onlys. They're a lot older than I am, but still, I don't know. I had a great mom that really appreciated fun, anything artsy. She was a philosopher. Sounds like you had a very, very good time too growing up.
Absolutely, and the land and the forest was really important. I had a garden plot that I would tend each year, and I just really appreciate those teachings, those learning, the chance for those experiences. You also sound like you had a really interesting childhood, so I'm curious to get to know you better as well.
Oh, I did. It's totally imaginative. I mean, really, I had a lot of fun. I was lucky to be surrounded by, big fir trees, and it's almost like you could hear, sitting outside quiet all by myself, I could hear I can't describe it. It was quiet, but it's almost like the wind going through the trees, right? It's just, and you could just see them moving. And at night, you could hear the peepers. I wanted my window open so I could hear what was going on, because it was calming, soothing. And I would think, too, that going through my husband went through chemotherapy, and a lot of people, we've got Dana-Farber right up the street, and boy, would your services be great. Oh my, there's so many things for you. Really, there are. What a gem. Come back and see us, okay?
I would be delighted to.
Alrighty.
I look forward to it.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next time and be my guest.
Moving through the cloudless sky, heading out toward the moon. I am dancing to the lunar tune. Life goes by so quickly, time just slips away. But tomorrow brings